Welcome everybody to the final shoe review of the 2024 season. We have a twofer on this one because it's I don't know, what is this? It's like a model series that's new to North Face. We've got a couple different variations. I have the North Face Offtrail TR. Finn has the Summit series Offtrail TR. We figured we would combine this into a little bit of a comparison review because they're similar, but they definitely have some differences. We're going to hash it out and help you figure out which one's the best shoe for you, if it's any of them. Finn, how are you doing on this early December afternoon?
Anytime we reach the end of a year, I just feel the gravity of how much work we've done over the past few years on the channel. Great that we're still here. I love being your sidekick for it, and yeah, feeling pretty good. You know, this is like I was trying to think of like where this shoe fits into what we've done this whole past year. It's very futuristic looking. I had my doubts going in, like the use case was obviously going to be there and legit, but I thought it would be the shoe equivalent of the Segway. We'll talk about it, of course, but I'm not so sure now. I think that this is actually going to go beyond sort of that trail shoe equivalent Segway uh, characterization. It's not
Yeah,
going to be like Job in Arrested Development. We're going beyond.
I'm glad that you got the Summit series because this one's I would say like the regular Off Trail TR is more your consumer grade, like probably for everyone. But I really wanted to have you run in that because you live in gnarlier mountains than me. You tend to go off trail more than I do. So I really wanted to see like, does that have a place on in your shoe closet? We'll dive into that. Before we get going though, just want to let everyone know that we got these shoes from North Face, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like the shoe or not because we want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. No one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. Let's do a little rundown of the stats. We'll do a little comparison as well. So my pair, the regular Off Trail TR is $149. Summit Off Trail TR is $199. My pair is, well, I'll do the weights in the same size. So like on their website, their sample size 9. My
Yeah,
pair, the Off Trail TR 11.7 ounces, 332 grams. The Summit Off Trail is 12.5 ounces, 355
burly.
grams, which like when you take that and put that up to like your size 12, you're probably rocking almost a pound of shoe, huh?
Yeah.
Definitely not a lightweight shoe. My pair is a size 10 and I just weighed it and it was 13 ounces on the dot. So is this the heaviest shoe we've ever reviewed? This might be. I know we've had some 12s.
Yeah. What competes? What comes to mind?
I was trying to think of like even like I was thinking like even like the Mafate, but that's not actually that heavy.
Yeah.
Caldera shoes are pretty
The
light.
Caldera looks like it would be heavy, and it is, but it's not where you think it would be just based on appearance.
Yeah.
It is a boat, but it's yeah.
Okay. Well, off the top of the head, I'm pretty certain that I've never reviewed a shoe that in my size weighed 13 ounces. So
They carry their weight well, though.
yes, that was definitely something like that I wanted to address is like don't just let the sheer number be a deal breaker. One thing I learned is that the stack heights of our shoes are different. So this is just the midsole foam in terms of the stack height. That's how North Face does their measurements. My pair is 18 millimeters in the forefoot, 24 millimeters in the heel for a 6 millimeter drop. Yours is 12 millimeters in the forefoot and 18 millimeters in the heel for also the same 6 millimeter drop, but you have 6 millimeters less of midsole foam underneath. What you do gain though is lug depth. So on the regular Off Trail TR, 5 millimeter lugs underneath. Yours is 7, I believe. So
7.
you get a you do get a little bit of cushion or like some sort of dampening effect from the rubber. Um,
Sure.
the uppers are similar but have some differences. I think that the front half of ours are the same. So we both have this cool looking futuristic matrix design. It's what North Face is calling an overlasted design. So the material goes over the forefoot and or over the midsole foam and it connects in underneath the midsole in between the outsole. They're not the first to do this. I mean, one of the most popular trail shoes of all time, the Salomon Speed Cross, also an
Yep.
overlasted design, but I think this is the first overlasted matrix material. Reason why they do that is just the angle at which the upper kind of attaches in to your foot because it goes all the way around the midsole creates a different type of squeeze around the forefoot, which is really going to help with that lateral movement. It also helps protect the midsole from sidewall cuts because this matrix upper is incredibly durable. Also, have a pretty significant like rubber sidewall as well, which is to help with stability and durability. Very substantial toe bumper in the
Yep.
forefoot as well. A lot of hike elements we're noticing in this shoe. Where it starts to differ, I'll go with the regular off trail first. I have a much more traditional back half of the upper. So midfoot to heel is kind of like a nylon ripstop type material. It's definitely on the thicker, more durable side. Classic lacing system, pretty thick padded tongue and kind of medium padding in the ankle collar and the heel. A little pull tab. We do have a rigid heel cup.
Yep.
Yours uh, differs quite a bit. So you got the full ankle treatment, huh?
Yeah, we've got as you can see, the single BOA dial Li2 system here, which we can get into when we're talking about the fit later, I suppose. But yeah, BOA fit system, perform fit wrap. I think they're calling it. I guess part of the value prop there is just like improved ankle stability, and then what do you call this? Like they're saying on this, I'm reading this off the site, a protective shroud. That's like this type of material here. It's like the built-in gaiter.
Is
So
that like top part? Is that two different
it
layers?
is. You can see the separation here. Like you can see the integrated. What do you call this here? Let me pull this up.
Oh, okay, yeah,
You
yeah,
can see the matrix 4-foot wrap underneath,
yeah.
and then the gaiter. Yeah,
And when you crank the dial down, like, can you tell like where the straps are or like where the lace part of the bow dial's going?
you
Like
can.
on like the speed lands and the ultras that we've done that have bow dials, you could see like where you're getting locked down because that only has one dial. So I'm curious
I'm gonna
where
try
is it
to pull this
hugging your
open for you.
foot to?
You can see those straps and you can see the wiring. You would just have to be like actually really intentional and like almost pulling the shoe apart to see that action take place. But
Okay.
one of the things that I assume North Face is trying to do with the design of this shoe is make all of that look like it's behind the scenes and it's just this single dial here. Like you're
Yeah.
seeing the entire like lever system, whatever you want to call it, at play in a Speedland. I think even in that Merrill shoe that we didn't review, but the Agility Peak
Mhm.
BOA one. But yeah, no, this is the way they've layered all this material on. It all is behind the scenes, and you really have to be intentional about kind of like pulling back the material
Okay.
to see what's going on.
Okay. Does yours have a rigid heel cup or is it floppy back there?
Rigid,
Okay.
pretty rigid.
Okay. So those are probably the main upper differences. One's definitely going for that more mountainy feel. Definitely is on brand with like the Summit series type name with the North
Hmm.
Face yellow and everything like that. It's pretty cool looking. The midsoles are a pretty basic EVA actually, and now that I'm learning is the biggest difference is that mine's just thicker. Because I remember texting you and be like, "Dude, I'm surprised at how cushioned this shoe is," and I get mine is more cushioned than yours, turns out, which again makes sense.
One thing I'm really curious about, because if you go on the North Face website, it says that this shoe was built in close collaboration with the North Face athlete team. I'm assuming that a lot of the people in that room were trail runners in our sport. And I'm just so curious to know exactly what they felt like they were missing from the North Face trail, like traditional trail shoe line, but also in between that traditional hiking boot to kind of fill the gap. Because this is so, like, one of my first feelings was like, this was so niche, but also in
Yeah,
this era where like gear is getting ultra light and we're finding that trail shoes can be a use case for almost any like wilderness setting underfoot. This, like the lane for this, even before trying it on, felt like super, super, super incredibly narrow. So to bring it to
yeah,
market is really interesting to me.
yeah, that's actually a good point. Which North Face athletes tested that shoe? Because I could see a scenario where they are putting that shoe on some of their climbers and, being like, if you use this as an approach shoe
Yeah,
or, you're transitioning from like wall to wall, like maybe there's how much input, like what percentage of input was from their trail runners versus their
great question.
skiers?
Great question.
expedition type people, because North Face does have all those athletes as well. So maybe this is a trail shoe that wasn't 100% influenced by just their trail running team.
Mm.
Um, just a theory. Not
And
sure.
yeah, has there actually, like, when we really think about it, have we actually been giving up quite a bit from a performance and protection standpoint when we went straight from hiking shoes to trail shoes in a through hiking context or like a
Mhm.
general backcountry context? Like, was that just way too stark a trade off? And are we actually reintroducing a little bit of a middle ground that actually has more use case than I might imagine with this shoe?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, like the verbiage for shoes. Like you can hike in a running shoe, but God forbid you run in a hiking shoe.
I know.
Like it doesn't go the other way.
Right. Right.
Maybe this is, well, I guess they are advertising this is a running shoe. Um,
I remember when I was on the AT in 2014, it was sort of there was like a passing of the baton happening gear-wise. It was sort of like all these
mm,
ultralight companies, like Ray Jardine's vision was finally coming into fruition, and companies like Z-Packs were out there, and the Ultra Lone Peak was all the rage, but there was still like
yeah,
half the people on the trail were like steel frame packs, flannel shirts, and Vask hiking boots, and the other half were like Z-Pack Soloplex tents, uh, short shorts, ultra lone peaks. It was, Hoka speed
yeah.
goats. It was really funny.
It's an interesting mixture. Our outsoles are the same lug design and pattern, full coverage, North Face's own in-house surface control rubber. Biggest difference is yours are the 7 millimeter lugs. Mine are 5. Definitely one of the more, if not the most rugged outsoles that we've tested on this channel. What kind of testing mileage did you get into it? And I guess we both kind of were texting each other before this review too, or when we first got the shoes, where it's like we're mostly counting by hours, not so much
Yeah.
mileage, because this is one of those shoes where you might not get a lot of miles, but you could certainly get a lot of time. So what'd you get?
All right. 6 run slash hikes, all on steep or relatively, or I should say, and or relatively technical terrain here in the Salt Lake area. So if you are familiar with this area, summited Mount Wire, Mount Olympus, Granger from the west side and from Church Fork, altogether looking at Strava, 23,000, just over 23,000 feet of total elevation change. So that includes up and down. And that was important to me because I was able to test this shoe in a pure like uphill hiking context, but also to kind of casually pick up the pace slightly and run downhill. With this BOA dial, we actually, I tested this when we had the La Sportiva, was it like the Jackal 2 BOA in house?
Mhm.
I was changing up the BOA dial a little bit in terms of tightness, loosening it on the uphill, tightening it on the downhill to just see how lockdown felt. And yeah, that was important. Altogether, about 15 hours. I mean, if you know those peaks, it's kind of a grind, especially in the winter, to summit. But I was trying to get this in a combination of like the nastiest, the gnarliest, but also relatively safest conditions. And those peaks are solid on the Wasatch Front here for that. So felt like I put it to
Nice.
use where it was intended.
Yeah, I mean, certainly sounds like it, especially during this time of the year, like, testing through basically most of November and into early December. Dude, I think for the first time ever, I outverted you.
What'd you do?
I got in 14,500 feet of gain
Oh my God,
in
Pete's
the
Punisher.
shoe or the testing. No, I actually didn't go up Pete's at all. I went up another one called Rob's, which is just as steep, but I did that one a couple times. I also went off trail and just like took some like not property, like forest line, like fire trails, which just cut
Sick.
straight down and up the hillside. But 52 miles. That's probably why I outverted you, because I went more. So your vert per mile is still higher. 10 hours, 10 hours, 52 miles, 14,500 feet of elevation gain, equal amounts loss. Um, all all here in Ashland, but I did get to hit dry trail, wet, muddy trail. I got some snow, a little bit of ice. So I got to test a pretty good amount of terrains, and I did take it on some pretty steep stuff as well. So I really tried to take the shoe where it was supposed to be taken. And yeah, I developed an interesting relationship with this shoe, because I really thought I thought I was gonna hate it, because it just seemed like such overkill for anything that I do from a trail running standpoint. But kind of moving on to the fit and upper breakdown, I was so pleasantly surprised with how comfortable the shoe was when I put it on. It seems like generally these types of like technical scrambly mountain shoes are just not that comfortable. I thought mine was super comfortable. What did you think? Because mine has the more normal upper, so I was able to just like put it on and tie it up. It felt like a normal shoe with a matrix forefoot, but then a super comfortable back half. What about you?
Incredibly comfortable shoe. I mean, it is like I'm just looking at the spec sheet again here. It's a pretty traditional EVA midsole. So just from like a feeling standpoint underfoot, it's not particularly cushioned or responsive. It kind of sits squarely in the middle of everything. But for what I was expecting coming in, it actually felt like kind of plush in a weird way. Like it was a really, really comfortable ride. I actually like I didn't even include these miles in there, but I did a lot of like running errands in these shoes. Like I would go to the supermarket because it was such a weird fashion statement. I kind of was just walking around and I was like, people, 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 my eyes are up here, you know?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm sure Whole Foods, Finn Melanson, aka Salt Lake City Trail running Jesus in his yellow North Face boots. I mean,
If you want to
whew.
start a conversation, just wear these at Trader Joe's and people will be stopping you in your tracks. I had a baby on my chest and I was wearing these things and it was just dynamite for
Oh my gosh,
conversation
I bet you
starters.
were just fighting them off.
But incredibly, incredibly comfortable. And you were talking about sort of like, does the baseline weight of the shoe, does the burliness of the shoe preclude any of those like feelings of comfort? And like, it also it wears its weight really well too. And I think one thing that I was going to get into when it comes to like performance, I know we're kind of jumping around, is you think about like the overkill, underkill argument. I
Mhm.
personally equate this very closely to undertrained, overtrained. I would rather be, like 10% undertrained than 1% overtrained. Similarly with shoes, especially for what it's made for, I would rather be like 10% overkill than even 1% underkill, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
'cause you get that, confidence of just knowing what you have is gonna work.
exactly. And the way they've put the materials together on this shoe, I do think it's distributed really thoughtfully, and I don't necessarily feel. I mean, you feel the weight a little bit inevitably, but I didn't feel like I thought I was going to, and it also shocked me in terms of comfortability. It's really hard to get into this shoe. Like I was pulling this heel tab quite a bit. I had to really sit down and focus, and I had the same issue with the Hoka Tecton X3. But once you're in this shoe, it's I wasn't like angling to take it off as soon as I
Yeah,
possibly could.
wasn't, like, uncomfortably tight
Yeah.
or anything like that. One thing that, I should mention that I was pleasantly surprised about too, which I just couldn't tell from the pictures of the shoe, was, the width and the volume in the forefoot was actually very adequate.
Yep.
I had no issues with the toe box is a little pointy. We kinda had the similar feelings with the Alta Mesa 500 where the toe box was, like, a little pointy looking, but then when you're actually in the shoe, the platform was so wide and it had such a high volume of material in the forefoot that it ended up being okay. I think this fell into a similar category as well,
Yeah.
where it does look kinda pointy, but there's enough volume there where it's gonna fit a pretty wide variety of foot types, especially for, people who have been looking for a technical terrain shoe where all the other ones are just way too narrow. This is definitely one of the more, generous fitting forefoots, and it didn't sacrifice lockdown or anything like that, and I think a lot of that's due to this overlasted matrix upper. The lateral stability of the shoe, awesome. I mean, I was, like, really
Mhm.
going on off-cambered stuff and trying to, like, take switchbacks really hard, and my foot just did not slide left or right at all. I think this is a really well executed upper.
Yeah, and I also just to add on to your just, like, volume point, it does obviously narrow towards the midfoot and the heel, but there's still a good amount of volume there as well.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just think I think it's one of those shoes where when I think about, again, the intended use of the shoe, you're in the wilderness, you're in the backcountry, you're probably on sort of an expeditionary type outing. You're going to need this shoe to fit not just at hour 1, but likely hour 14, hour 17, 18. So you're going to need some room to grow into the shoe if your foot starts to just,
Yeah.
um, inflame. So I also like that there is volume for that respect as well.
Maybe even hours 58, 59, and 60 if you're running Barkley.
Exactly. When we saw this last year, because I think they had this very briefly at TRE 23, I was like, that this is the
Yeah.
Barkley shoe.
You were like, "This is the Barkley shoe for
This is the
sure."
Barkley shoe.
Did yours feel pretty true to size?
Exact true to size. Yep.
Yeah, same with mine. My 10
Yep,
was
true to
spot on.
size.
Underfoot, I'd said before, I was pleasantly surprised at how much cushion there was, and running in it, like you had said, it kind of doesn't really feel overly mushy or overly responsive because it's pretty basic EVA. That's how I felt too, which, then again, with, like, the expectations of, like, coming from, like, La Sportivas and other more minimal shoes, this then felt so cushioned, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I could." Where some of the other ones, like the La Sportiva Jackal and stuff, I was like, "I don't know if I could spend a significant amount of hours in that shoe." This, I feel like I could spend a very significant amount of hours in just because of how there is enough underfoot where I could be out on a all-day, multi-day type expedition, not too rockered, a little bit. The transition's actually pretty smooth. The only major thing is, like, it is heavy to the point where, like, I'm not doing speed work in it, like, I found that it was, like, hard to run fast, like, I had to put forth more effort to run fast in this shoe, but when we're talking, like, your all-day ultra paces, it
Mhm.
got the kind of the pendulum effect started going with my feet, and it actually I thought it was pretty smooth, yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, and then we'll talk, use
I've
cases.
got a good use case race for this shoe now too.
Okay, what's that?
Well, should I wait until the end or can I say no?
Yeah, just go for it. What do you got?
The winter spine over in the UK. If I got the Gore-Tex
Mm.
version of this shoe, I think this is, in addition to Barkley, an ideal shoe for the winter spine race where
Is
you're
how long is that? 100, 200?
268 miles on the
268.
Pennine Way. So it's multi-day. This is the race that Jasmine Paris won. Jack
Yeah.
Scott, who's in Cocodona this coming year, he recently won it last year. You're going through all sorts of the craziest winter conditions. I wouldn't wear this particular. I would wear the Gore-Tex version because it's
Mhm.
waterproof and you're going to go through a lot of like bogs and stuff on that course. But that was top of mind because I really wanted to do that race one day, and I was like, what's a good spine shoe? This I think is a good spine shoe as well.
Okay, since we're talking use case scenarios, the use case scenario that actually came, like, very front of mind for this particular one, through hiking. This would be my new multi-day through hiking shoe.
Mm.
I texted you, I think maybe even after, like, the 1st or 2nd run, I was like, "Dude, this regular off trail is a Brooks Cascadia on steroids." It's, like, a little more cushion, it's got an even more durable outsole, the upper is absolutely bulletproof, and it's very comfortable. It's like, I don't why wouldn't I hike the AT or the PCT in this shoe? It's breathable enough. I just don't see how this upper would fail me before the midsole or outsole does. But then, the midsole is protected by the upper. This outsole is massive. Like, dude, I'm hiking. I bet I'm getting at least 1,000 miles of hiking out of this shoe.
Before putting on the shoe, I would have disagreed, but now I agree. The big change for me that puts me in your camp is this is a more breathable upper than I thought it was going to be. I
Mhm.
thought just looking at these specs, looking at these materials, that this shoe was not going to vent. I'd be overheating 10, 20 minutes into the run. It'd be the shoe equivalent of wanting to take off your rain jacket or sweatshirt after you've begun a run in the cold and now you're all warmed up. But no, this thing actually, the non Gore-Tex version of this shoe vents
It's not
really
bad.
well. It's
Yeah, it's
actually
pretty
pretty
solid.
solid. Yeah.
The other use case that I found for this shoe, which we had said that in the Cascadia 17, was, you wear this shoe for a few days and then you go put your Tecton X3 on your Agravic Speed Ultra. It makes those shoes feel awesome. This is a great daily trainer to keep you grounded and
Yes.
not get spoiled by some of the trail super shoes. And I think that's important. Like in my quiver, I'm always gonna have, a very
It's
like
not a
a
diss.
boring shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually found that this shoe is really easy for me to just log all of my easy miles in. Like, yeah, it's heavy, it's kind of cumbersome, but it's very stable, it's very comfortable. It feels like it's gonna last forever. So it's like, yeah, I can log miles no problem in this, which also led to like durability. This feels like 1,000 mile shoe.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, you and I were saying offline that we're not sure which upper is more durable. The Norda, like really any shoe in the Norda lineup, at least 01, 02, or this upper right here. Like I got this sort of matrix forefoot wrap, which I think is, again, we should insert the Vince McMahon leaning back meme for just like ideal upper here.
Well,
It's
yeah, I mean, you got your ankle gaiter, your boa dials, and your
oh yeah,
matrix. I mean,
oh
I
yeah.
don't know. That's checks off every box on your wish list. But, one of the impressive parts about everything that you get with the shoe and the durability is the price. Like my pair, this is $150. I think
These,
that's how much a Cascadia is.
yep, these were 200.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is, $100 cheaper than a Norda. I mean, I guess that's just easy math. If you got 2/3 of the mile of the Norda, or 2/3 of the mileage of the Norda, then you get similar value. But I think this regular Off-Trail TR for $150, if you're okay with the weight, this might be one of like the value shoes of the year.
Oh,
Um, like this is just like a great like mud clomper wintertime like junk mileage kind of trainer. It's super comfortable like hiking ups and running downs. For all those people who are starting to get their Rufa training in right now, I think this is a great shoe for that.
100%. And I mean, I know it's relative, like quote unquote, this is a boring sort of traditional EVA midsole foam, but I think the positive trade-off there is it's predictable. Like there's no break-in required. It's going to be a pretty stable ride from the moment you put it on first run, probably 20, 25 runs down the road. Like I think there is a durability angle to the midsole as well. Like I think that this upper is bulletproof, like you said, for probably 750 to 1,000 miles, but I think you might be able to get
Yeah.
more out of the midsole than you would expect.
Yeah, I don't think North Face chose an EVA midsole to cut costs. I think they chose an EVA midsole because it's the correct material for
Mm.
this shoe. I don't believe this should be a supercritical EVA or a super foam. That seems really dumb to me. Like this should be a boring foam that doesn't have a ton of bounce. So I think in that regard, the cushioning balance is great with this shoe. So yeah, overall, I was very pleased with this shoe. I think I'm gonna hold on to it and bust it out every once in a while when I just need something to like reset my like shoe expectations for things, and then also if I'm ever doing some big vert. This I think this is kind of my big vert mountain shoe now.
We should have some sort of tagline or category for when a shoe is worthy of being positively archived. Like, oh yeah, like I want this for posterity. I want this for like I want this shoe in my locker for the next. I want to put this like I want to like bury this in a box and pull it out 20 years from now and be like, oh yeah, like that was
Well,
sick.
in 2023, you had the high top La Sportiva, and you kept that for pretty much the whole year. Does that Summit Off Trail replace it?
Oh yeah, I mean, so going back to the spine, I have been wanting to do the spine for a while. Actually, I think I'm going to pull the trigger and sign up for the January 26 event. So I will definitely be bringing this with me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to see if I can access the Gore-Tex version as well.
All right. You heard it here first. Finn Melanson, 2026 January spine race.
Be there, be
Uh,
square.
yeah,
Thank you,
shoot.
North Face.
Thank you, North Face.